Admiral Hyun stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Crimson Dawn, and smiled. Victory was close. He could taste it like sweet wine on his tongue. Below him, 47 warships of the Velnar Empire moved through space in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed under the light of distant stars. Their weapons hummed with deadly power. "The humans are running," his tactical officer reported. "Their ships are breaking formation. They flee toward the asteroid field." Hyun's smile grew wider. Of course they were running. What else could they do? The Velnar Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their technology was superior. Their warriors were trained from birth. Their shields could withstand attacks that would vaporize lesser vessels. And humans? They were nothing. Primitives who had barely left their homeworld a century ago. Children playing with weapons they did not understand. "How many human ships?" Hyun asked. "7, Admiral. All old models. Mining vessels converted for war. They are no match for us," Hyun laughed. 7 ships against 47. The humans must be desperate. Their colony world, New Pyongyang, lay just 3 hyperspace jumps away. Defenseless. Waiting. After this battle, Hyun would burn it to ashes. The Empress herself had given him this honor. Crush the human expansion. Show them their place. Make them beg for mercy. "Pursue them," Hyun ordered. "Full speed. I want those ships destroyed before they reach the asteroids." The Velnar fleet surged forward. Their engines burned bright blue against the darkness of space. Hyun watched the tactical display as his ships closed the distance. The human vessels were slower, weaker. They would die quickly. "Admiral, we are intercepting human transmissions," the communications officer said. "They are calling for evacuation. They say their weapons are failing. They sound panicked." Hyun nodded. "Good. Let them panic. Let them feel fear before the end." The Velnar way was honorable combat, ship against ship, strength against strength. But crushing weak enemies who dared to expand into Imperial space? That was justice. "Break standard formation," Hyun commanded. "Spread the fleet wide. I want them surrounded. No escape." His officers obeyed instantly. The Velnar fleet split into 3 groups. They would catch the humans in a net of fire and steel. Hyun had studied human tactics. They relied on desperation, on wild, undisciplined attacks, on luck. But luck always ran out. The human ships entered the asteroid field. Hyun's scanners tracked them easily. The asteroids provided no real cover. Velnar sensors could see through dust and rock. There was nowhere to hide. "All ships, prepare to fire on my command," Hyun said. His hand hovered over the control panel. This would be the killing blow. His name would be remembered. Admiral Hyun, who ended the human threat. But something felt wrong. Hyun frowned. The human ships were not trying to hide. They were not using the asteroids for cover. They were simply running, in a straight line, as if they wanted to be followed. "Scan the area again," Hyun ordered. "Full spectrum. Are there more human ships nearby?" The sensor officer worked quickly. "No, Admiral. Only the 7 vessels. No other signatures detected." Hyun relaxed. He was being too cautious. Humans were not sophisticated enough for complex traps. They did not think like the Velnar. They did not understand honor or strategy. They simply fought and died. "Fire," Hyun commanded. The Velnar fleet opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams lanced through space. Missiles streaked toward the fleeing human ships. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. 3 human ships died in the first volley. Their hulls shattered. Their crews vaporized. 4 remained, still running deeper into the asteroid field. "Again," Hyun said. "Finish them." The second volley launched. More beams. More missiles. The remaining human ships exploded one by one. Within seconds, all 7 were destroyed. Debris scattered across space, tumbling slowly through the void. Hyun felt satisfaction wash through him. Easy, just as he had predicted. Humans were no challenge at all. "Admiral," the tactical officer said. His voice was uncertain. "The human ships, they were not manned." Hyun turned sharply. "What?" I am detecting no life pod launches. No biological signatures. The ships were empty. They were controlled remotely. A cold feeling settled in Hyun's chest. Decoys. The humans had sent decoys. But why? Where were the real ships? Scan everything, Hyun barked. Find their real fleet, now. Officers rushed to their stations. Scanners swept the system. Minutes passed. Nothing appeared. Admiral, there are no other ships, the sensor officer reported. We have scanned the entire system. If human ships were here, we would detect them. Unless they were hiding. Unless they were using some kind of stealth technology. But humans did not have stealth technology. The Velnar had tried for centuries to develop true cloaking and failed. Humans were too primitive. They could not have succeeded where the Empire had not. Could they? Admiral. The sensor officer's voice cracked with sudden fear. Contact, directly off our starboard side, 800 meters. Hyun spun toward the window. Space rippled. The stars seemed to bend. And then, like a ghost becoming solid, a ship appeared. It was massive. Larger than any human vessel Hyun had seen. Its hull was dark, nearly black, covered in angular plates that seemed to drink in light. Weapons ports studded its surface like the eyes of a spider. And it was close. Impossibly close. Near enough that Hyun could see the human letters painted on its side. UHSV Quiet Storm. Shields up, Hyun screamed. All weapons! The human ship fired. The universe became light and thunder. Railgun rounds slammed into the Crimson Dawn shields at relativistic speeds. Nuclear-tipped torpedoes detonated in brilliant flashes. Experimental plasma lances. Weapons the Velnar had never seen before carved through shield generators like knives through cloth. The Crimson Dawn shook. Hyun was thrown to the floor. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. Smoke filled the air. Around him, officers shouted in panic. The tactical display showed red. So much red. Shields at 30%, 20%. Weapon systems damaged. Command tower hit. Return fire, Hyun shouted, pulling himself up. All ships concentrate on that vessel. But the Velnar fleet was scattered. They had spread out to chase the decoys. Now they were too far apart to support each other, and the human ship was moving. It accelerated with impossible speed, diving beneath the Crimson Dawn, using the flagship as a shield against the other Velnar vessels. Hyun's ships tried to lock weapons, but their targeting computers could not keep up. The human warship moved in 3 dimensions, spinning and weaving through space like a dancer. Velnar doctrine called for ships to hold formation, to trade fire at range. This human ship fought like nothing Hyun had ever encountered. More Velnar ships died. The human vessel appeared beside one destroyer, fired at point-blank range, and vanished before return fire arrived. It used asteroids for cover, appearing and disappearing. It moved behind the Velnar fleet and launched missiles that struck engines and weapon ports with surgical precision. How many crew does it have? Hyun demanded. How can they calculate firing solutions so fast? Unknown, Admiral. Their computer. Systems must be... An explosion cut off the officer's words. Another Velnar ship died. Then another. The human warship was everywhere at once, a ghost that killed and vanished. Hyun watched his fleet die. Ships that had served the Empire for decades. Crews trained since childhood. All of them falling before one human vessel. One ship. How was this possible? The tactical display updated. Hyun's blood turned to ice. More contacts. Human signatures appearing at the edge of the system. Reinforcements. Coming fast. A transmission came through, cutting across all channels. A human voice speaking perfect Velnar. Calm, almost gentle. Velnar Fleet, this is Commodore Daeho Kim of the United Human Space Vessel Quiet Storm. You have 3 minutes to surrender. Power down your weapons. Prepare for boarding. This is your only warning. Hyun stared at the smoking ruins of his command deck, at the burning wrecks of his fleet, at the darkness of space where a human warship waited, patient as death itself. He had hunted prey into a trap, but the prey had been the hunter all along. 3 minutes was a long time in space combat, long enough to die 1,000 times, long enough to make the choice between honor and survival. Admiral Hyun chose honor. All ships, he transmitted through bloody lips. Ignore the human demands. We do not surrender to primitives. Focus all fire on their flagship. Kill them. Around him, what remained of his command crew worked frantically. The Crimson Dawn was dying slowly. Hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. Fire suppression systems fought losing battles in 3 different sections. The beautiful command deck that had hosted Imperial dignitaries now looked like a war zone. But the weapons still functioned. The engines still burned. And Hyun still had 33 ships left, 33 against 1. He would take those odds. Target their engines, Hyun commanded. If we cannot kill them, we will cripple them. The Velnar fleet turned, weapons charged, targeting computers locked on. Hyun watched the countdown. 3, 2, 1. The human ship moved first. Commodore. Daeho Kim sat in his command chair and watched the tactical display with calm eyes. Around him, his bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. No panic, no fear, just focused determination. They are charging weapons, Lieutenant Boyong reported from the tactical station. All remaining ships. Target lock acquired on us. Good, Daeho said quietly. Let them commit. He had studied Velnar tactics for years. He knew how they thought, how they trained, how they fought. The Velnar believed in overwhelming force, in direct confrontation, in honor through strength. They were predictable, and predictability was a fatal weakness. Helm, execute pattern Delta 7. Keep us between the asteroids. Make them chase us. The quiet storm dove, not away from the enemy, but toward them, threading through the asteroid field at speeds that made his helmsman sweat. Velnar ships fired. Energy beams lanced through space. Missiles streaked from launch tubes. But the human vessel was already gone, dancing between tumbling rocks that each massed millions of tons. Return fire. Target their communication relays and sensor arrays. I want them blind and deaf. Boyoung's fingers flew across her console. The Quiet Storm's weapons spoke. Railgun rounds traveled at 3% light speed. At this range, they hit before the Velnar crews could react. Communication towers shattered. Sensor dishes exploded. Ships that had been coordinating their attack suddenly found themselves isolated, unable to talk to each other, unable to see clearly. Admiral Hyun is trying to re-establish fleet communications, the communications officer reported. He is broadcasting orders on open channels. Daeho smiled. Jam those channels, and broadcast false orders. Make it look like they are coming from Hyun's flagship. Within seconds, the Velnar fleet descended into chaos. Some ships received orders to attack. Others received orders to retreat. Some heard nothing at all. Without clear leadership, without communication, the disciplined formation fell apart. Ships moved in different directions. Some accelerated, others decelerated. 2 nearly collided as they tried to maneuver through the same space. New contacts, Boyoung announced. Human vessels entering the system, 3 ships, Captain Somin's group. Daeho leaned forward slightly. Right on time. Somin was the best fleet coordinator he had ever served with. She understood pack tactics. How to coordinate multiple ships to attack like wolves, cutting off escape routes, isolating targets, overwhelming defenses. Signal Captain Somin. Execute hammer and anvil. We are the anvil. The 3 new human warships did not look impressive compared to Velnar vessels. They were smaller, less armored, but they moved like sharks, fast and deadly. They came at the Velnar fleet from above, forcing the enemy to split their attention. The Quiet Storm pressed from below. The Velnar fleet found itself caught between 2 forces, unable to concentrate fire on either. Hyun watched his fleet crumble and felt something he had not experienced in 20 years of military service. Fear. The humans were not supposed to fight like this. They were supposed to be simple, direct, emotional. But these tactics were anything but simple. Every move had a purpose. Every attack targeted a weakness. It was like fighting an opponent who could see 3 moves ahead. Pull back, Hyun ordered. Reform the fleet. Establish a defensive perimeter. But his ships could not hear him. The communication systems were jammed. The few ships that received his orders could not execute them because other ships were blocking their path. The neat formations that Velnar doctrine demanded were impossible in this chaos. Another ship exploded, then another. The human vessels worked together with terrifying precision. They did not waste shots, they did not fire randomly. Each attack was calculated, each target chosen for maximum effect. "Admiral, we have lost 19 more ships," an officer reported. "We are down to 14 functional vessels, 14 from 47. In less than an hour, Hyan had commanded fleets that conquered entire systems. He had destroyed rebellion. He had never lost, never even come close to defeat. Until today. "All ships retreat," Hyan commanded. "Emergency jump to hyperspace, now." But the humans had thought of that too. As Velnar ships began to charge their hyperspace drives, alarms blared, proximity warnings. The human vessels had seeded the space around them with mines. Small, stealthed devices that activated the moment a ship tried to open a hyperspace window. 3 Velnar destroyers exploded as they attempted to jump, their drives tearing their own hulls apart. "We are trapped," the tactical officer whispered. Hyan looked at the tactical display, at the red icons representing his dying fleet, at the blue icons representing human ships that moved with such deadly grace. At his own flagship, crippled and burning, he had one choice left. "Ramming speed," Hyan said. "Take us directly at their flagship. If we are going to die, we will take them with us." The Crimson Dawn turned. Its engines burned at maximum power. It accelerated toward the quiet storm, a massive wounded beast making one final charge. Daiho watched the Velnar flagship coming and did not move his ship. "Sir," Boyong said urgently, "they are going to ram us. We need to evade." "No," Daiho said calmly. "Hold position, all power to forward shields, and charge the main cannon." His crew trusted him. They had followed him through a dozen battles. They held their positions even as the Velnar flagship grew larger in their view screen. Closer. Closer. 5,000 meters. 3,000. 1,000. "Fire," Daiho said. The quiet storm's main cannon spoke once. A single concentrated beam of plasma, magnetically contained, carrying enough energy to vaporize a small moon. It struck the Crimson Dawn's damaged bow and punched through armor, through bulkheads, through power systems and crew quarters and weapon bays. The Velnar flagship's charge died. Its engines went dark. It tumbled slowly, still moving forward on momentum alone, but no longer a threat. "Cease fire," Daiho ordered. "Signal Captain Soman. Begin boarding operations. I want Admiral Hyan taken alive." The battle was over. Debris floated through space where proud Velnar warships had been. Emergency beacons wailed from damaged vessels. Escape pods drifted toward Yan, human ships carrying survivors who had finally chosen life over honor. Daiho stood and straightened his uniform. Around him, his crew remained at their stations. Professional, focused, they had done their jobs well. "Casualties?" Daiho asked. 17 wounded, 3 critical. "No deaths," Boyong reported. "Good. Get them to medical, and send a message to command. Tell them we have secured the Talvos system. The Empire's fleet is destroyed." As human Marines boarded the Crimson Dawn, Hyan sat in his command chair and stared at nothing. His uniform was torn. His face was bruised. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye. Around him, his crew lay dead or dying. The humans had won. Not through superior numbers, not through better weapons, but through tactics he could not counter, through deception, through fighting in ways the Velnar had never encountered. When the human Marines found him, Hyan did not resist. He stood slowly, painfully, and raised his hands. The lead Marine, a young man with careful eyes, secured his wrists with restraints. "Admiral Hyan," the Marine said in perfect Velnar, "you are under arrest for war crimes against civilian populations." Hyan said nothing. What was there to say? He had lost. His fleet was destroyed. His honor was shattered. The Empire would be shamed by his defeat. As they led him away, Hyon passed a view screen showing the quiet storm. The human warship hung in space, damaged but victorious. And on its bridge, Commodore Daeho Kim stood watching, his expression thoughtful. In that moment, Hyon understood. The galaxy had changed. Humans were not primitives, they were not children playing with weapons, they were something new, something dangerous, something the Empire had never faced before, and the war had only just begun. News of the defeat reached the Velnar homeworld 3 days later. The transmission was brief, direct, impossible to believe. Empress Velara sat on her throne of black crystal and read the report again. 47 ships destroyed. Admiral Hyon captured. The Talvo system lost, defeated by a force 1/10 their size. Human forces. This is a lie, she said coldly. Some kind of human trick. False intelligence. Her military advisor, General Corvin, stood before her with his head bowed. Your Majesty, we have confirmed the reports. Multiple sources, survivors, intercepted human communications. It is true, Velara's hand tightened on the arm of her throne. The crystal cracked slightly under the pressure. Admiral Hyon was one of our finest commanders. He had the largest fleet, the best crews. How could he lose to humans? The reports indicate unusual tactics, Your Majesty. The humans did not fight according to standard doctrine. They used deception, stealth technology we did not know they possessed, ambush strategies that cowardice, Velara interrupted. You mean cowardice. The humans are too weak to face us honorably, so they hide in shadows. General Corvin said nothing. He had read the full tactical reports. What the humans had done was not cowardice. It was brilliant, but suggesting that to the Empress would be unwise. Assemble an armada, Velara commanded. 300 ships. Our newest vessels. Our best warriors. We will burn every human colony until they beg for mercy. We will show them the price of defying the Empire. Your Majesty, perhaps negotiations. No negotiations. Velara stood. She was tall, imposing, draped in robes that seemed to absorb light. The humans must learn their place. They are insects, primitives, we will crush them, and this time there will be no survivors to celebrate their tricks. 300 ships. It was the largest military force the Velnar Empire had assembled in a century. Enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds, enough warriors to occupy a dozen systems. The Empress was not taking chances. On the human colony world of New Pyongyang, Commander Jiwon Park stood in the underground command center and watched the intelligence reports scroll across her screen. 300 ships, coming toward human space, expected arrival in 18 days. We need to evacuate, her second-in-command said. Get the civilians off-world before they arrive. Jiwon shook her head. Where would they go? Every colony in this sector is a target, and we do not have enough transport ships to move everyone. She studied the data. No, we stay, we fight, and we trust Commodore Daeho to do what he does best. One ship stopped their admiral. But 300? That is different. Daeho will not use one ship, Jiwon said quietly. She had served with him before her transfer to colonial administration. She knew how he thought. He will use something better. Far from New Pyongyang, in a secret military research facility orbiting a dead moon, Commodore Daeho Kim walked through a massive hangar. Around him, 15 warships hung in zero gravity, connected to the facility by umbilical cables that fed them power and supplies. These were not normal warships. They looked similar to the Quiet Storm, but smaller, faster, each one covered in the same light-drinking black coating. Each one equipped with experimental technology that had taken human engineers 5 years to develop. Project Phantom. 15 stealth warships, each one capable of operating alone for months. Each one commanded by a Captain Daeho had personally selected and trained. Captain Soman Lee walked beside him. She had earned her promotion after the Talvo system. Now she would command the Phantom Fleet's 2nd Strike Group. They are afraid of one ship, Soman said. How will they react to 15? They will panic, Daeho replied. Fear is a weapon, Soman. More powerful than any gun. We are going to make the Velnar Empire afraid of the dark. The Empress sent 300 ships. Even with our tactics, those are difficult odds. Daeho stopped and looked at her. His expression was calm, but his eyes were hard. We are not going to fight 300 ships in open battle. We are going to make them fight each other. Make them doubt every shadow, every sensor reading. Make them spend more time worrying about where we are than where they are going. He brought up a holographic display of human colonial space. Red markers showed Velnar fleet positions. Blue markers showed human colonies. The enemy was advancing along 3 fronts, planning to hit multiple targets simultaneously. "Here is what we are going to do," Daiho said. "Divide the fleet into 5 groups, 3 ships each. Each group will shadow 1 Velnar fleet element. You will not engage unless you have perfect conditions. You will strike their supply lines, their communication relays, their scout ships. You will make them paranoid." Soman studied the display. "Hit and run. Make them see ghosts." "Exactly. The Velnar think in terms of formations, fleet actions, honor combat. They do not understand guerrilla warfare. By the time they reach our colonies, they will be exhausted, scared, out of supplies, and then we will hit them with everything we have." "What about the quiet storm?" Daiho smiled slightly. "I have special plans for my ship. Admiral Hyon wants revenge. The Empress wants blood. I am going to give them a target they cannot resist." Engineer Minho Choi listened to Commodore Daiho's plan and thought it was insane. Beautiful but insane. "You want me to build portable cloaking mines?" Minho asked. "Mines that can hide in hyperspace transit lanes?" "Yes," Daiho said simply. "Can you do it?" Minho ran calculations in his head. The theory was sound. Miniaturize the cloaking technology, add a proximity sensor, program it to activate when it detected a hyperspace window opening. Simple, except nothing about cloaking technology was simple. "Give me 3 days," Minho said. "I will need every fabricator in the facility. And all the coffee in the station." "You have 2 days," Daiho replied. "And all the coffee you can drink." Minho cursed but got to work. He understood what Daiho was doing. The Velnar moved through hyperspace using predictable routes, standard navigation lanes that connected systems. If you could mine those lanes, you could turn the enemy's own transit system into a weapon, make them afraid to jump, force them to travel slower, give human forces time to prepare. 48 hours later, Minho presented Daiho with 200 cloaking mines, each one the size of a basketball, each one carrying enough explosive force to cripple a warship's hyperspace drive, each one invisible to standard sensors until the moment it activated. "These are prototypes," Minho warned. "They might not all work perfectly. Some might activate early. Some might not activate at all. They will work well enough," Daiho said. "Load them on the Phantom ships. Deploy them along every major hyperspace route between here and Velnar space." The Phantom fleet launched quietly. No ceremonies, no announcements. 15 black ships slipped away from the research station and vanished into the darkness. Within hours, they were scattered across a dozen systems, each one hunting. The Velnar armada advanced. 300 ships in tight formation. Their commanders confident. Their crews eager. They would avenge Admiral Hyon's defeat. They would show the humans the true power of the Empire. The first mine activated when a Velnar destroyer tried to jump into the Koros system. One moment the ship was preparing to enter hyperspace. The next, its drive exploded, tearing the engine section apart. The destroyer tumbled through space, crippled but not destroyed. Its crew sent distress signals. The second mine activated 3 hours later. Another ship lost. Then a third, a fourth. Within 2 days, the Velnar fleet had lost 17 ships. Not to battle, not to human attacks, but to invisible weapons that struck from nowhere. The fleet slowed. Commanders checked and rechecked their navigation. Engineers examined hyperspace drives for sabotage. Paranoia spread like disease. Every jump became a gamble. Every transit an opportunity for death. And then the Phantom ships began their work. Captain Soman led her 3 ships in a textbook ambush. The Velnar supply convoy was poorly guarded. Just 2 escort frigates protecting 6 massive transport vessels. The human ships appeared behind them, fired once each, and vanished before the escorts could return fire. 3 transports destroyed. Supplies meant to sustain the armada for weeks gone in seconds. Other Phantom groups executed similar strikes. Scouts disappeared. Communication relays were destroyed. Small patrol groups were isolated and eliminated. The Velnar fleet continued advancing, but now it moved slowly, carefully, constantly looking over its shoulder. General Corvin received the casualty reports and felt cold dread settle in his chest. They had lost 43 ships without ever seeing the main human fleet. Supplies were running low. Communications were sporadic. And the warriors, the proud Velnar warriors, were afraid. He tried to explain this to Empress Valara. She would not listen. Push forward, she commanded. The humans are trying to delay us, to make us doubt. We are still superior in numbers. We will overwhelm them through pure force. But doubt had already taken root. Across the Velnar fleet, crews whispered stories about human ghost ships that appeared and vanished, about cursed hyperspace lanes, about the human called Daiho, who could be everywhere at once. Aboard the Quiet Storm, Commodore Daiho monitored reports from his Phantom Fleet commanders. Everything was proceeding as planned. The enemy was off balance, scared, exactly where he wanted them. "Sir," Lieutenant Boyong reported, "we have intercepted Velnar transmissions. The Empress is demanding faster progress." The Velnar Armada arrived at the New Sol system with 241 ships. They had lost 59 vessels to mines, ambushes, and accidents caused by paranoia. The journey that should have taken 12 days had taken 23. Supplies were low. Morale was lower. General Corvin stood on his command ship and looked at the planet below. New Sol was a young colony, barely 20 years old. Its population was small, maybe 3 million. The orbital defenses looked minimal. A few weapons platforms, some satellites. Nothing that could threaten a fleet this size. "Why does it feel like a trap?" his tactical officer asked quietly, because it probably was, Corvin thought. But he could not say that out loud. The Empress demanded results. Demanded blood. And New Sol would be that result. "Begin orbital bombardment," Corvin ordered. "Target population centers. Make it quick." The fleet moved into position. Weapons charged, targeting solutions calculated. In 30 minutes, New Sol would be a dead world. A message to humanity that resistance was futile. Then the sensors went dark, not all at once. But section by section, like lights going out in a building, ships lost contact with their neighbors. Targeting systems failed. Communication arrays stopped responding. Within seconds, the organized fleet became isolated ships drifting in space, blind and deaf. "Report," Corvin shouted. "What is happening?" "Unknown, sir. Some kind of electronic warfare. I have never seen anything like this. It is coming from everywhere." On the surface of New Sol, Commander Jiwon Park sat in the underground command center and watched her screens. 23 electronic warfare stations scattered across the planet's surface. Each one broadcasting interference on every frequency the Velnar used, jamming their sensors, scrambling their communications, making their sophisticated fleet as effective as individual ships lost in fog. "Phase 1 complete," she reported. "Phantom Fleet, you are clear to engage." They came from the planet's rings, from behind moons, from the asteroid field that orbited at the system's edge. 15 human warships appeared simultaneously around the Velnar fleet. Not attacking, just appearing, visible for 3 seconds, then gone. Panic spread through the Velnar ships faster than any weapon. Crews fired at shadows, at each other, at empty space where ghost ships had been moments before. Without communication, without coordination, the disciplined formation dissolved into chaos. Captain Soman watched from the bridge of her ship, the silent death, and allowed herself a small smile. This was the tactic Commodore Daiho had taught her. Appear, disappear, make the enemy doubt their own eyes. Let fear do most of the work. Target their command ship, Soman ordered. The big one. 2-second firing window. Then jump to position Delta. The silent death materialized beside General Corvin's flagship. Weapons fired. Railgun rounds punched through shields already weakened by constant alerts. Missile impacts cratered armor plating. Then the human ship vanished before return fire could be coordinated. Corvin's ship shook. Alarms blared. Damage reports flooded in. "Sir, we need to withdraw," his first officer shouted. "We cannot fight what we cannot see." "No," Corvin said firmly. "We stay, we complete the mission. All ships begin bombardment regardless of communication status. Fire on the planet." To it now, some ships obeyed. Energy beams lanced toward New Sol. Missiles streaked through space. But most of the ordnance never reached the surface. Human ships appeared in the path of fire, intercepting weapons with point defense systems. And when Velnar ships focused on bombardment, they became vulnerable to Phantom Fleet strikes. Soman coordinated the defense with practiced skill. She did not need to communicate with her sister ships. Each captain knew their role. Each ship operated independently but as part of a greater whole. Like a pack of predators, they circled the massive Velnar fleet, striking again and again. never staying in one place long enough to be targeted effectively. "Sir," her tactical officer reported, "Velnar losses at 37 ships. They are beginning to pull back. Do not let them regroup," Somin ordered. "Press the attack. Make them run." On his command ship, General Corvin made the hardest decision of his military career. All ships retreat. Emergency jump to hyperspace. Scatter formation. Rendezvous at Rally Point Gamma. The Velnar fleet broke. Ships jumped in every direction, desperate to escape the nightmare battlefield. Some made it. Many did not. Minho's cloaking mines waited in the hyperspace lanes. More ships died trying to escape than had died in the actual battle. When the last Velnar vessel had jumped away or been destroyed, Commander Jiwan allowed herself to breathe. The planet was safe. The civilians had never even seen the battle hidden in their underground shelters. 62 Velnar ships destroyed. The rest scattered across 3 systems, disorganized and demoralized. "Signal Commodore Deho," Jiwan transmitted. "New Sol is secure." Phantom fleet performed perfectly, awaiting orders. Deho received the message aboard the Quiet Storm and nodded. Phase 2 complete. The enemy was running, afraid, broken, but not finished. "Not yet. Lieutenant Boyoung," he said. "Set course for the dead zone. It is time to end this." Boyoung looked at him with concern. "Sir, the dead zone is dangerous even for us." "The radiation, the sensor interference, which makes it perfect," Deho replied. "Signal the Phantom fleet, all ships to converge on my position, and send a message to General Corvin, unencrypted. Make sure he receives it." "What should the message say?" Deho thought for a moment. "Tell him I'm waiting in the dead zone. Tell him if he wants to save his honor, he knows where to find me." The message reached General Corvin as his shattered fleet regrouped at Rally Point Gamma. 179 ships remained, still a powerful force, but the warriors aboard them were exhausted, afraid. They had seen friends die to invisible enemies, had watched proud warships destroyed by tactics they could not counter. "The human commander challenges us," Corvin's tactical officer said. "He wants us to fight him in the dead zone. It is obviously a trap." "Of course it is a trap," Corvin agreed. He studied the coordinates. The dead zone was a nebula famous for sensor-distorting radiation and spatial anomalies. Navigation was difficult. Communication was nearly impossible. Fighting there would be suicide, but so would returning to the Empress empty-handed. "Prepare the fleet," Corvin ordered quietly. "We go to the dead zone." "Sir, that is—" "I know what it is," Corvin interrupted. "But we have no choice. We cannot return home defeated. We cannot abandon this mission. Our only option is to kill the human commander and hope that breaks their will." As the Velnar fleet prepared to jump, Corvin sent a message to the Empress. He explained the situation, the losses, the human tactics, the trap he was about to walk into. He expected she would understand, would see the impossible position he faced. Instead, Empress Valara sent back 3 words: "Victory or death." Corvin read the message and felt nothing. No anger, no fear. Just tired acceptance. He had served the Empire for 40 years, won dozens of campaigns, conquered systems, and now he would die in a radioactive nebula, hunted by an enemy he had underestimated. "All ships," he transmitted, "jump on my mark, and may fortune favor the brave." The Velnar fleet jumped into the dead zone. Commodore Deho stood in the center of the nebula and watched his sensors. The radiation made long-range detection impossible, but that worked both ways. The Velnar could not see him, and he could not see them, but he knew they were coming, could feel it like pressure before a storm. Around him, hidden in the swirling clouds of radioactive gas, 15 phantom ships waited. And scattered throughout the nebula, hundreds of Minho's cloaking mines drifted like invisible seeds of destruction. "Contacts," Boyoung reported. "Multiple signatures. They are here. All ships, battle stations," Deho ordered calmly. "Weapons free. No survivors unless they surrender. This ends today." The trap snapped shut. Velnar ships emerged from hyperspace and found themselves surrounded by radiation that made their sensors useless. They could not see more than a few thousand kilometers, could not communicate effectively, could not coordinate. And then the human ships appeared. Not all at once. One at a time, appearing beside a Velnar vessel, firing with devastating accuracy, then vanishing back into the nebula. The Velnar tried to return fire but hit nothing, tried to form defensive positions but could not see where their allies were, tried to jump to hyperspace but triggered mines that tore their ships apart. General Corvin's command ship took fire from 3 directions simultaneously. His shields collapsed. His weapon systems went offline. His engines died. Around him, his fleet was being systematically destroyed, ship by ship, with cold, calculated precision. "Sir, we must surrender," his first officer begged. "We cannot win this." Corvin looked at his tactical display. 94 ships lost already. The rest scattered and dying. The human tactics were perfect. The trap was perfect. He had been beaten by a better commander. "Open a channel," Corvin said quietly. "All frequencies." A moment later, a human voice responded, calm, almost gentle. "General Corvin, this is Commodore Daeho Kim. I am listening." "I wish to negotiate surrender," Corvin said. "My ships will power down weapons. We will submit to boarding. I ask only that you spare my crews." "They are soldiers." They followed orders. There was a pause. Then Daeho spoke again. "I accept your surrender, General. Power down all weapons. Transmit your fleet positions." The peace conference took place on neutral ground, a space station called Unity Point, built centuries ago by the Galactic Commerce League. The station hung in empty space between human and Velnar territory, a symbol of what diplomacy could achieve when war failed. Empress Valara arrived with an escort of 12 ships. Her entourage numbered 300, advisors, warriors, diplomats trained in negotiation. She wore robes of imperial purple and carried herself with the dignity of a ruler who had never lost. Until now. Commodore Daeho Kim arrived alone, aboard the Quiet Storm. He brought no escort, no entourage, just himself and his crew. He wore his uniform, clean and pressed but showing signs of repair where battle damage had torn the fabric. He had refused a new one. This uniform had been through the war. It had earned its scars. They met in the central conference chamber, a circular room with windows showing the stars. The table was round, so no one sat at the head. Equality enforced by architecture. Valara looked at Daeho and saw not the monster she had imagined. Not some savage warlord, just a man, middle-aged, calm, with eyes that had seen too much death and did not look away from it. "You are younger than I expected," Valara said. "War ages you in ways that do not show," Daeho replied. He sat without being invited. A breach of protocol, but he had not come to play diplomatic games. "Shall we begin?" For 3 days they negotiated. The terms were simple. Harsh for the Velnar, fair by human standards. The Velnar Empire would recognize human sovereignty over all current colonial holdings. They would pay reparations for the attack on New Pyongyang and other colonies. They would return Admiral Hyan and all captured personnel to human custody for trial, and they would reduce their military to defensive levels only. "These terms are insulting," General Corvin said on the second day. He sat beside the Empress, his uniform stripped of rank insignia, a prisoner representing a defeated empire. "You would humiliate us." "You humiliated yourselves," Daeho replied calmly. "You attacked our colonies without provocation. You called us primitive, weak. You expected an easy victory. These terms are not punishment. They are the natural result of your failure. We are the Velnar Empire. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years, and now you will rule it alongside humans, or you will not rule it at all." The silence that followed was heavy. Valara stared at Daeho with an expression that mixed hatred and respect. This human had destroyed her fleets, captured her warriors, brought the mighty empire to its knees, and he did it with tactics she still did not fully understand. "How?" she asked finally. "How did you defeat us? Our technology is superior. Our warriors are trained from birth. You should not have been able to win." Daeho considered the question. Around the table, diplomats and advisors leaned forward, curious. The answer to this question would shape galactic politics for decades. "You assumed we would fight like you," Daeho said. "Honor combat. Ship against ship. Formation against formation. But humans learned war on Earth. We had no choice. We fought for thousands of years. Not against one enemy, but hundreds. Different cultures. Different tactics. Different weapons. We learned that there is no honor in losing. That victory matters more than how you achieve it. We learned to adapt, to change, to use our enemies' strengths against them." He paused and looked directly at Valara. "You were predictable. We were not. That is why we won. You call it adaptation. We call it cowardice," a Velnar general said bitterly. "Call it what you want," Daeho replied. But you lost. And we survived. History will remember that. On the third day, Valara signed the treaty. Her hand shook slightly as she marked the document with her seal. Centuries of imperial pride crushed under the weight of defeat. But she was not a fool. She understood that refusing would mean more war, and more war would mean the end of the Empire. This is not over, Valara said quietly as she stood. Someday the Empire will rise again. Perhaps, Deho acknowledged. But when it does, it will not be the same Empire. Because you have learned that humans are not prey. We are equals, and we will defend ourselves by any means necessary. Valara left without another word. Her entourage followed in silence. The Velnar delegation departed Unity Point with their ships moving slowly, like wounded animals limping home. The war tribunal took place 2 months later on New Pyongyang. Admiral Hyan stood trial for ordering attacks on civilian populations, for refusing to accept surrender, for war crimes against the laws that governed galactic conflict. The evidence was overwhelming. Recorded communications, survivor testimony, battle logs recovered from captured ships. Hyan had authorized orbital bombardment of population centers, had ordered his ships to fire on medical transports, had executed prisoners who refused to give him information. Commodore Deho attended the trial every day. He sat in the gallery and watched Hyan's defense crumble under the weight of facts. The Velnar Admiral looked smaller now, broken, his arrogance stripped away by months of captivity and the reality of his defeat. On the final day, the judges delivered their verdict. Guilty on all counts. The sentence life imprisonment on a human penal colony, not death. Humans did not believe in execution as justice. But Hyan would spend the rest of his days behind walls, remembering the moment he realized humans were not primitives. As guards led him away, Hyan stopped beside Deho's seat. Their eyes met. For a moment, Deho thought the Velnar Admiral might say something, offer some final curse or threat. Instead, Hyan simply nodded. A gesture of respect, warrior to warrior, enemy to enemy. Then he was gone. Commander Jiwon Park stood in the rebuilt city center of New Pyongyang and looked at the sky. Construction crews worked around her, rebuilding what the brief Velnar bombardment had damaged. The casualties had been light, thanks to the underground shelters. But the scars remained. Buildings with blackened walls, parks where craters were being filled and replanted, reminders of how close they had come to extinction. We are naming the new spaceport after you, the mayor said beside her. Park Station. Has a nice sound. Jiwon smiled slightly. I was just doing my job. You saved 3 million people. That is more than a job, perhaps. But Jiwon knew the truth. She had saved those people by trusting Deho, by believing that his tactics would work, by holding the line while he fought in the darkness. The real hero was the man who had faced the Empire's might and refused to blink. Far from New Pyongyang, in orbit above Earth, the Quiet Storm rested in a military museum. The ship had been decommissioned after the war. Too damaged for easy repair, too famous to simply scrap. Now it floated behind force fields, a monument to the conflict that had changed everything. Tourists came from across human space to see it. Children pressed their faces against viewing windows, imagining the battles it had fought. Veterans stood quietly, remembering friends who had served aboard similar vessels. And occasionally, military officers studied its design, trying to understand what made it so effective. The ship kept its secrets, but its legend grew. Captain Soman Lee became Admiral Lee, commander of Human Defense Fleet Pacific. She implemented the tactics Deho had taught her across the entire military. Human warships now trained in asymmetric warfare, in deception, in adaptation. The days of honorable combat were over. Survival mattered more. Engineer Minho Choi received the Human Medal of Innovation for his cloaking mine technology. He used the prize money to open a research lab dedicated to developing new defensive systems. He never wanted humanity to face extinction again. Never wanted to rely on luck and clever tactics. Better to have overwhelming advantage next time. If there was a next time. General Corvin returned to the Velnar homeworld and resigned his commission. He wrote a book about the war, about human tactics, about what the Empire needed to change if it wanted to survive in a galaxy where humanity existed. The book was banned by imperial decree, but copies circulated anyway. Young Velnar officers read it in secret, studied its lessons, began to question the old ways. Change came slowly to the Empire, but it came. Empress Valara ruled for another decade before dying of natural causes. Her successor, a younger prince named Velkor, surprised everyone by reaching out to humanity with an offer of alliance. Not surrender, not subservience, but partnership. The galaxy was larger than the Empire, filled with threats neither humans nor Velnar could face alone. Better to work together than to remain enemies. Humanity accepted. Carefully, with conditions. But they accepted, and Commodore Daeho Kim, he took the promotion to Admiral that command offered, then immediately requested transfer to Exploration Fleet. He had spent enough time fighting, had seen enough death. Now he wanted to see what else the galaxy held. He took a small ship, a crew of specialists, and he jumped into unexplored systems mapping new worlds, making first contact with unknown species. Sometimes these contacts were peaceful, sometimes they were not. But Daeho approached each one the same way he had approached the war, with patience, with intelligence, with the willingness to adapt to whatever he found. 10 years after the war, a journalist found Daeho on a remote station at the edge of charted space. She wanted to interview him about the conflict, about the battle that had made him famous, about the moment the Velnar Admiral screamed when a human warship decloaked. Daeho agreed to the interview but gave disappointing answers. He did not glorify war.